Well, Mookie Betts made it to the World Series after all. Unfortunately, not as a player, but he is working as a correspondent for Major League Baseball. We're going to talk about that and his experience there. We're going to talk some more about Rob Manfred, some of his comments about the postseason and it being a crapshoot, and that's the way he likes it. And then we'll talk about a report that Tommy Pham several times tried to come to the Dodgers and never was successful. And now he's playing in the World Series and they are not. And we'll talk all about that. That's what's on tap. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. Then you can be in every day or just like we are. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snider. That's my co-host, Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. And Vince, it's November 1st now. That means it's officially Christmas season now that we're past Halloween. And even more so, the Major League Baseball season could end today. The Rangers are up 3-1 in the World Series. So the World Series could end today, which would mean free agency starts soon. The offseason officially starts. Like that will kick off what's going to be a pretty crazy and busy and intriguing offseason for the Dodgers. But you're in Arizona. What was the atmosphere like for game 4? Which game 4, right? Yeah.
Yeah. In general, this series has been probably the least hyped atmosphere on both sides. Like Texas it just felt like a regular game where people were just cheering when good things happen, and those cheers happen to be louder. Not people are cheering, and then when things happen, they cheer more. I think I've been spoiled by being a Philly twice in the last couple of years in the postseason, but also Houston was really good. Despite how I feel about Astros fans, like they were a pretty good environment. So yeah, I don't know. It was a fine environment, and then the Astros, I'm not the Astros, the Diamondbacks were down 10-0, and then it wasn't as great of an environment. Although they did stay when they hit the home run late in the game, the 8th inning, like there was still a pretty large crowd there and a pretty nice, cheering, and they stayed in the game. So I was pretty good on that end. But yeah, I mean, I'm torn between wanting to go back to Texas to see a home team win. I've never seen the home team win. Actually, I did last year, Houston, but that doesn't count. No. So, I don't know. It's been interesting. But Corey Seager continues the Corey Seager discourse, so shout out to him.
Yeah, if the Rangers do win it, Corey Seager seems to be the front runner to be the MVP of the World Series for the second time in his career. Probably, I think he'd be the first player ever to win World Series MVP for 2 different teams. And one of the, sure, we'll call him a reporter. One of the reporters who would be covering that would be Mookie Betts, who has been in Arizona just doing, MLB correspondent stuff on social media, stuff like that. And it's been, obviously it's not the capacity in which Mookie Betts was hoping to go to the World Series. But Mookie loves baseball and baseball loves Mookie. Maybe Dodger fans don't love Mookie as much right now as some people do, but in general, Mookie Betts is one of the big stars of the game. So it makes sense that MLB would get him. Have you crossed paths with Mookie much while you've been there?
Yeah, I saw him before game 3. Didn't have time to chat, but I was talking to the guys from his management or the one marketing team, and Mookie talked about it too, how he's there, MLB asked him to be there. He's getting himself ready for when his career is over. He said that his wife had kind of told him, like, hey, you're going to have a midlife crisis when you're done playing baseball around 40. And he said he thought about it, and he's like, yeah, I might. So, I think, it's the Dodgers aren't playing right now, obviously, partially because, maybe because Mookie didn't play very well, and he knows that, and he's mentioned it twice. And, he said it right after the series, and he said it multiple times since then and in different, parts. If you're upset that Mookie Betts is a correspondent for MLB and, helping grow the game, then, I think you have other things to be more upset about in the world than Mookie Betts helping MLB out and, interviewing players. He was on the pregame show on before and after game 4. I don't know if he was post-game, but pregame show before game 4. He is the face of one of the faces of baseball. And for, all the stuff that people give Mike Trout for not being out there and other guys maybe not being out there marketing themselves, Mookie's marketing himself. He's marketing baseball, and I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, me neither. He's one of the most likable guys in baseball. He's good for the game of baseball, and it makes sense that Major League Baseball will want to put him out there at a time when there's more eyeballs on the product. Let's put our handsome, smiling, extremely talented, extremely charismatic guy out there and let him grow the game. I think it's awesome. And especially there's nothing he could be doing right now that would increases his chances of hitting well next October. So Mookie he's great. I'm happy to see him doing that. It hasn't been without its controversy, which we're not really going to touch on other than to acknowledge it and say, yep, well, people can have their opinions. And one of the great things about living in America is you can have your opinions, and some of those opinions can be that other guy's opinion sucks. And, and he can think your opinion sucks, and then we can all move on with our lives. And, it's easy to get up in arms about people we don't know. But there's plenty of people who and love who you disagree with on something of some degree of importance or another. And yet, because you have a relationship with them, you put those things, you put them aside, and you just have your relationship. And so, we should probably all learn to be at least as charitable with strangers as we are with the people we know, and not get up in arms about every little thing.
Yeah, people have opinions. They share their opinions. You don't have to agree with their opinions, and you are more than welcome to voice your opinion about it. And that's the way it goes. He's not on the Dodgers anymore. Mookie is, and we'll focus on Mookie for the moment, unless something in the other realm changes, which I don't see it changing specifically in the Dodgers realm. So
yeah, and it's that's probably enough said about that. Mookie is good for baseball, and I'm glad he's there, and I'm hoping that he gets to see this series wrap up today, just because I'm rooting for the Rangers in the series. Because of my wife's ties to Texas and because of Corey Seager. And, I hope that they wrap it up, even though it will be fun for them to win it at home. Corey Seager's already won a World Series in Texas, and so he doesn't need to win another one in Texas. He can win one in Arizona and jump in the swimming pool, because Corey wasn't around yet last time the Dodgers swam in the Diamondback swimming pool. So, he needs to get that opportunity too. So,
quick note on that. It came up again because there was an article of Willie Bloomquist still mad about it. But I know it's been 10 years, but I didn't realize there's only 2 players from that game still in the majors, according to the article. I'm assuming that's Kershaw and Jansen. So that's pretty wild. I did not. If you would have told me that, I would have been like, no, there has to be more. But
yeah, because Justin Turner wasn't on the Dodgers yet. He was in the league, but he wasn't on the Dodgers yet. And I guess that's probably accurate. That's crazy. Pedro is not really in the league. I don't know if he's retired, but but I think he was on that team, wasn't he? Anyway, Willie Bloomquist staying relevant. Good for him. We're going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about Rob Manfred. Speaking of guys trying to stay relevant, he had some thoughts on the postseason being a crapshoot, and we will talk about his thoughts. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, who's going to date Taylor Swift next. Actually, I don't think you can bet on that, but and it seems like she's in a loving and committed relationship now, so good for her. I don't know if there's any Taylor Swift betting on FanDuel, but there's lots of Kansas City Chiefs betting on FanDuel, and the Chiefs are coming off a loss, which if we know anything, it means the Chiefs are going to be fired up. So it might be a good time to put some money on the Chiefs. Put $5 on them. They win the game, $150 in bonus bets. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season and get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. FanDuel, official partner, NFL. Hey, we are back. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, especially you everydayers. We love talking Dodgers with you. We appreciate you being with us every weekday morning. If you're not an everydayer, it's a really easy club to join. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. Wherever you're watching and listening right now, subscribe to make that easier. Remember, you can catch today's game and any subsequent baseball games on SiriusXM and the SXM app. Just search for World Series. You can also listen to this podcast on the SXM app by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you're watching this on YouTube, remember, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. If you're listening on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you through social media or email. We're especially going to want to hear your thoughts on this next topic. Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, who is, let's just say, he's a bad commissioner. And we talked yesterday, and we gave him credit for actually saying something that was reasonably self-aware and somewhat intelligent. And he had some thoughts on the postseason too. And this isn't, he didn't say anything that was wrong necessarily. But it does seem like he's missing the point. Vince, do you have those quotes pulled up right now?
I
might.
Yeah, he said if the outcome in the postseason is going to be dictated by regular season results, why bother? And then he's basically flipped it on himself. Well, if regular season results are going to dictate the postseason, then why bother? He says, I think the goal should be to have a fresh competition. He went on to add a fresh start where teams have a chance to win, where the outcome isn't predetermined. And basically, the postseason by itself is its own season. And whatever happens before that shouldn't matter. Basically, just getting there is what the first part of the regular season for.
Yeah, and I think this is a little bit disingenuous on his part because nobody wants a predetermined postseason. When people are talking about the postseason being watered down and clamoring for, some fixes, nobody's saying the Braves should have been declared the World Series winners because they won the most games in the regular season. What people are saying is the three teams with the best records in the league this year all lost in the first round of the playoffs. And maybe, just maybe, it ought to matter a little bit more than it does. And, I think that, I'm glad he did have the self-awareness to flip around his own question and realize, I just said something stupid. So let me make the argument against it. And because, if the regular season doesn't matter at all, there's no reason I imagine the players union would be pretty upset about what he said. If what he's saying is, just win 84 games, that gets you in the postseason. That's all that matters. The players union would probably not be happy about a bunch of teams trying to win 84 games. That is bad for player salaries and a lot of other things. And the fact is, it's bad for fan enjoyment. And that's what really gets to me. And that's why I try to keep this perspective. And I know it annoys people sometimes on here, but I really do think of the regular season as a different thing. It is 6 months of a lot of fun. And, in the last 2 years, the Dodgers have they've won 107 games at home over the last 2 years or something, which means 107 times fans got to go to a game and then sing I Love LA after the game and have a good time and watch their team win the game. And yeah, it sucks when they lose in the postseason. I was at both home games they lost this postseason, and it wasn't fun. But the other games that they win during the regular season, those are fun. And that's meaningful too. And so there is value in a 6-month successful season, even if it doesn't ultimately lead to a World Series title. It's more frustrating than losing the NLDS. It's a little less frustrating losing the NLCS. And then, it's a little less frustrating losing the World Series, except then it gets more frustrating because you're so close. But all that said, like, it is important to recognize that they're two different things. But as the commissioner of baseball, the person in charge of making sure that baseball remains entertaining for the fans, Rob Manfred needs to be more aware of the fact that what he is advocating for is a worse fan experience because it is teams not trying as hard in the regular season to give their fans those 50 wins at home, that great enjoyment over the course of a full season that is very meaningful to baseball.
I mean, he doesn't care about the championship at all. Anyway, he called it a piece of metal before. Like he doesn't really care specifically about the World Series and all that. He cares about where MLB is. He cares about the bottom line, the dollar, what the owners want, everything else. So that's kind of where, he loses a lot of people specifically because it doesn't appear to be a baseball fan. He appears to be someone who works in baseball, and specifically the commissioner in this sense. The other thing they asked him about is, going back to the one game wild card series, because they've all been sweeps so far the last 2 years, how, the time off and everything else. And he mentioned, I think he said, I'd like to basically shout out CC Sabathia for this. He says, if you ask all the teams, like, would they rather play I don't know why he worded it this way, but would you rather play a 2 out of 3 series, or would you rather have the 5 days off? He said everyone would take the 5 days off instead of having the first round be 2 out of 3 or whatever, with no buys, I guess is what he means. I don't know, but either way, it's only been 2, and the fact, that's what he mentioned as well. Like, it's only been 2. We'll see what happens. He says he believes teams will figure out that break, or what to do, or whatever the case during that break. But I definitely think, he's aware of it at the very least, even if he doesn't agree with it. And if anything, with him, to not to give him too much credit, but the baseball has been trying things. They've been making different rules. They've done different things. Maybe not all beloved by all, but if anything, they'd be willing to try it. I don't know. Obviously, I don't think on this CBA they can make that big a change to the postseason, but maybe figuring out what could be those changes for the next CBA.
Yeah, and the fact is, for the first 60-something year that there was a World Series, it was just the winner of the National League against the winner of the American League, and there was no playoffs. It was just the World Series. Winning the pennant meant something. Winning your league was a meaningful thing. And then, okay, who wins the World Series? And then starting in 1969 with divisional play, it started getting watered down. And since then, it's just gradually gotten less and less likely that the best team will win the World Series. And, for the most part, I agree with the concept that it would be boring if the best team won the World Series every year. But I think what Rob Manfred is deliberately, I think, failing to acknowledge is that there's a lot of middle ground between the best team winning the World Series 100% of the time and the best team winning the World Series 23% of the time, like it currently is. And I think most fans would like it to be 60 to 70% of the time, where you do sometimes have upsets. You do have, if your team gets into the postseason, not as the best team, they still have a chance. There's that opportunity, but that the best teams do get rewarded more often. Or even, I'd say, if 85% of the time, one of the 3 best teams in baseball won the World Series. Like, I think that's what fans are looking for, that they want to know that the 162 games do matter for the postseason in some way. And
there's a reason that Cardinals team stands out the 83 win Cardinals team because it was once in a lifetime. Now, the last 2 years, they might not win, but we've had an 86 win and an 84 win team in the World Series and easily in the World Series.
Yeah. And it shouldn't be that way. Like not that often. That should be a fluke. The 2006 Cardinals should be a fluke. And adding more teams. And unfortunately, they're gonna add more teams when they expand. Add 2 more teams to the major leagues. They're going to end up adding more teams to the postseason. We're going to end up with a situation where half the teams in the league make the playoffs. And we're, as fans, knowing that they're never going to go back, we do. That's why I think it is important to appreciate the regular season and for what it is, and just kind of divorce it from the idea of the postseason and recognize that, what, even though in the last 10 years, the Dodgers and the Royals have won the same number of World Series titles, I don't think anybody could with a straight face say that it's been just as good to be a Royals fan in the last 10 years as it has been to be a Dodger fan, because the Dodgers give us a good product every year, give us that chance. And I think that's worthwhile.
They have less stressful Octobers, Royal fans.
Yeah, that's true. more Cancun trips. We're going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about somebody who is playing in the World Series. That's Tommy Pham. A report came out that he really wanted to be a Dodger, and it didn't happen, and we'll talk about why. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. Hey, we're back. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day morning, especially our everydayers. Remember to check out all MLB stuff on SiriusXM and the SXM app. Search for World Series. You can listen to MLB Network Radio on there, all sorts of good stuff. And you can listen to this podcast there by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So Tommy Pham started this season with the Mets, signed with them as a free agent, and then got traded to the Diamondbacks at the trade deadline. There was talk at the trade deadline of him wanting to come to the Dodgers. That didn't happen. And a new report just came out that we saw that said that he actually wanted to sign with the Dodgers this last offseason. He said that some of his former teammates who were with the Dodgers were talking to him saying, hey, try to get here to LA with us. And he tried. And according to him, he tried twice, and Andrew Friedman shot it down both times. The impression is that Friedman just wasn't interested in having Tommy Pham on the team. That it's an interesting thing. Obviously, that's one side of things. We don't have any idea what Friedman's version would sound like. And even if Friedman's version matched up, we wouldn't really know why it was that way. But you have any initial thoughts on that, Vince?
Initial thoughts, getting out ahead of it, people have been clamoring for the Dodgers to have, more attitude or more whatever. Tommy Pham said that the Mets might have been like the least hardworking team he's been with, and blah, blah, blah. And he's very hardworking. And honestly, I like, regardless of the jock incident and everything else, anytime I've seen or been around Tommy Pham, he is a nice guy when he's like not in game mode. And then when he's in game mode, he's very focused. And he's a guy that takes batting practice with 2 different groups. Like he's a guy that, he works hard, and, whether it's because he has to or whether, whatever the case is, I don't think there's a reason wrong with it. Would he have fit on the Dodgers? I mean, he might have. It was one of those things where, like, Trace Thompson started the year with the team. If you had someone else play, Outman was the starting center fielder from day one, and then you had Pham and instead of Trace Thompson, and then, you move different guys around to play, have them in that realm. Maybe he could have fit. It's one of those where would he have brought a different mentality to the team? Possibly. But also he had that same mentality on the Mets, and they weren't good and they were underperforming. So, and he's been on the Padres when they underperformed as well. So I've seen him in a different capacity the last couple weeks when I've been around him. Has made me like him a little bit more than I had before. But before the season, I can't get upset about it now because I didn't feel that way before the season.
Yeah. And for me, what it mostly comes down to is the last 3 years before this season, he had a 93 OPS plus. and he combined for 1.9 WAR over the last 3 seasons. Like he just wasn't very good. Like, and that's, and so that at least maybe explains a lot of the lack of interest in the offseason. The Dodgers, it's not like they never sign players who haven't been good. They do, but it's if they have a plan to fix them. And I don't know that maybe it was just as simple as nothing about Tommy Pham screamed at the Dodgers front office, we can fix this. We can get the most out of his talents. And the fact is he did hit well with the Mets, and then he didn't hit well after he came over to the D-backs. He had a 95 OPS plus with them. He was just, slightly below league average. He had a solid season this year, but not amazing. 1.5 WAR in, basically 481 plate appearances. That's 2/3 of a full season, 1.5 WAR. That's barely starter material overall this season. So I think the clamoring for Tommy Pham has a lot to do with what you're talking about, having that edge, that attitude. Tommy Pham, there's one thing he's known for, it's the attitude, and if you get it in your mind that the reason the Dodgers have lost in the postseason in the last 2 years is because they were soft, because they weren't mentally tough enough, then yeah, you're going to want somebody like Tommy Pham. But Tommy Pham, he's hitting well in the World Series. He hit well against the Dodgers, well against the Brewers and the Phillies. He didn't hit well. And that's kind of a theme of his postseason career in his life. He's another guy.
Just one other bad series.
Well, but if you look at
he's over 840 in every other series besides one before this year.
But the highs and lows, it's like 1750, 840, over 1,600. It's like he hasn't been as bad. Yeah, not like the 350 OPSs that he's had in the 2 series this season, but he's not just a crusher in the postseason. He's been solid. And but I think it probably just boils down to at the trade deadline, the Dodgers needs, I don't know that right-handed hitting outfielder was that high on their list of needs. They already had moved one right-handed hitting outfielder to second base to make room for more lefties, and so it's like, and Tommy Pham, he doesn't really have severe splits. He's mostly a neutral split guy. And so I guess that's the other thing that maybe we're looking back and saying, okay, when did the Dodgers know that David Peralta was hurt? Because, he would have made more sense than Peralta probably. But all in all, like I'd have to stretch my imagination pretty far to think that Tommy Pham would have been the difference maker for this year's Dodger team in the postseason.
Well, it would have been addition by subtraction in a sense, because he wouldn't have been hitting 500 against the Dodgers if he was on the Dodgers. But yeah, it's one of those things where I can understand wanting that type of player. They've had him in the past. Chase Utley, didn't win a World Series with him though. They had David Freese in a different sense, but in a similar sense, I guess. They didn't win it with him either. Like, I can understand wanting that type of attitude, and I do think that the Dodgers, like we said before, I do think their mentality of, maybe not fully, is not going to fully change, but I do think, guys like Tommy Pham or someone similar with like great, whatever you want to call it, I do think it doesn't account for much, but maybe it does. Like, maybe, even a guy like Jerks and Profar, like the Padres were bad all year. Profar came, they caught a little hot streak when he was there. Like, maybe he was helpful in that locker room or in that clubhouse. I don't know, but I do think I don't think they're going to go after guys like that now, but I do think if there's a way to get one in, if they have a chance, then they might do that.
Yeah, and then I just think back to the regular season, that the story all summer was this team is so together and they're so focused and they love each other so much, and it's the best team that I've ever managed and blah, 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 all that stuff, that if the Dodgers won the World Series this year, it all would have looked great on the World Series DVD, but in hindsight, it's like, okay, well, that wasn't the right answer. And so maybe it is time to try that. But, the fact is we've tried having the best team in baseball by a million miles. That didn't work. Have the best offensive team that the Dodgers have had in 60 years. That didn't work. Like have a great blend of young talent and veteran leadership this year. That didn't work. So, sometimes I'm all for solutions, but I feel like you have to correctly diagnose the problems first. And I don't know that anybody has actually correctly diagnosed what went wrong for the Dodgers this year, except for me when I said it. They just got cold at the wrong time, and I don't know that there's anything you can do about that except hope that next year you don't get cold at the wrong time. And there's things you can, like, the easiest thing to address, the most glaring weakness to address is starting pitching. But the fact is the Dodgers scored 6 runs in 3 games against the D-backs. Starting pitching wasn't going to win that series for them, even if they had been awesome. Unless they were going to win 3 2-1 games. But it's yeah, a lot had to go wrong this year, and it did. And Tommy Pham was part of that, but I don't know that he would have been the fix.
Yeah, I do think that not knowing the answers means that you can just try more stuff, like try stuff, like doing things they haven't done in the past. Like a guy like Jordan Montgomery might not be a guy that would have gone into the past. For some reason, it's worked out. Like at different times, guys like we've talked about different guys, and they maybe haven't had postseason performances, but there's been a lot of pitchers the last couple of years that have gone for 20-25 mil that have been pretty good that Dodgers didn't go after. That maybe could have helped in different realms.
Yeah. Yeah. So it will be an intriguing offseason for sure. Tommy Pham will be a free agent again. And a lot of other players will be too, just in a few days. Shortly after the World Series ends, free agency starts, and then the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes begins, all of that stuff. It'll be intriguing, and we'll be here to talk about all of it. You got anything else for today, Vince?
I do not have anything else.
All right, that'll do it for us for today. Thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, please watch or listen every weekday morning. If you have friends and family who love the Dodgers like you do, please tell them about the show. Maybe they'll like it too. Remember to check out SiriusXM and the SXM app for all your MLB needs. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Our DMs are open over there. You can also email us anytime you want, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or you can shoot us a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.